There it is.
All right, we are live. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-hosts and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows. And we have our first winner of the Southwest Gunsmith Technologies gift certificate giveaway that's going to get you some laser stippling, sipling. Andy has still not coached me up on how to say that word. Is it stippling or
Andy? Stippling.
Stippling.
Yep. And I'm the winner, right?
It's just like it's spelled.
Stippling. Well, I can't read, so that's the biggest problem.
Can't spell either.
Yeah, can't read, can't spell, and that's how Google pronounced it to me. So that winner is Doug, and here's a great last name for me to practice pronunciation on. Doug Dowski, I believe, is going to be the winner of that. If I mispronounce your name, I'm terribly sorry, but you're not surprised at all. If you would like to enter to win that gift certificate for laser stippling, did I say that right? Or some Cerakote work from Southwest Gunsmith Technologies, Rick Kennedy over there. Go to afteractionproject.com/giveaway. That's afteractionproject.com/giveaway. Bonus entries for Patreons, and that's patreon.com/afteractionproject. Today we have Jerah from Clearing the Chamber. We're going to talk about her Texas license to carry course. Some unique stuff that she's doing down there that really focuses and cares, shows that she cares about her students. And Daphne will be talking to us about her perspective on that course. Before we get too much further into this, Jerah, why don't you go ahead and talk to us a little bit about your background in all things guns and what got you started teaching the license to carry course?
Well, I mean, I grew up around guns. I'm from East Texas, so it was just kind of part of the culture. And I was I had a stalker when I was younger. And so I decided to get a handgun. I'd always had shotguns in the house. And as I started to learn more about guns, I started to just kind of show other people at the range what to do, and kind of got into teaching a little bit. And then finally got NRA certified to be a pistol instructor with Judson and Andy. They came over to Fort Worth and taught a class at a gun range that I ran for about 4 years. And then I was on the wait list for the license to carry course in Texas for about 1.5 years. And then I got my certification last November. I'd been teaching the deadly force portion in other people's classes as a guest speaker because I had worked a lot with some lawyers in the DFW area who had kind of taught me about the legal side of it. So I would teach that as a guest. And then I finally got my certification last November. So I started clearing the chamber, and it has taken off ever since.
That's awesome. So Daphne, talk to us about your background with firearms. Was this your first formal firearms training course? And what led you to Jerah and clearing the chamber?
Well, of course, around them. I'm originally from East Texas as well, but this is definitely my first course with an instructor that gives you the hands-on training, and not only going over the laws and all of that, but taking the time to show you how to hold a firearm and how to use it properly. So in that aspect, yes, this is my very first time being in an instructor course.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with my mute button. Jerry, you're doing something that not a lot of other instructors are doing in the firearms industry. One of the things that we're seeing you do is you're really focusing your courses around the students' schedule. Talk to us a little bit about that and why that's something that you feel is important.
I would RSO classes at the gun range that I used to work at, and the number one complaint was that people were having to get up early on the weekends to get this done. And the reason for that is because a lot of these firearm facilities, they've got members to deal with, and they've got walk-ins that want to come in, during their business hours. So everybody kind of has to be off the range before you open. And we saw, we saw classes start to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And then they kind of came back up after, the Texas legislature brought the state fee from $140 to get your license to carry down to $40. And then people were kind of willing to, more people were kind of willing to sacrifice their weekend. But, when I was doing this research, I found that, only a small percentage of the Texas population, 3% to be exact, has their license to carry. That's crazy. I mean, that's Texas is a huge state. So I needed to start working around other people's schedule if I was going to get them this education, especially women. Moms are busy. Moms are busy people,
So is it safe to say that the Texas 3% concealed carriers are threepers?
Are troopers?
Threepers.
Threepers.
Oh yes, absolutely they are.
Yeah, technically they are threepers because that's they're 3% of the population. So how does that work? Daphne, walk us through the process from I think I might want to get my license to carry to finding a course, signing up for it, completing it, and going through that application process. What does that look like for you?
Sure. Well, my original reason of wanting to getting my license is I actually own a tax business in the Fort Worth area. And during tax season, sometimes I'm there really late at night by myself. And so, having that extra security being there by myself was something that I've always wanted to do, but I never wanted to do it without having my license. So I went and searched looking for an instructor and trying to figure out how I could get my license. And I actually came across her class. And when I came across her class, it was for all women. And I thought this is perfect for me because she will understand, why I'm wanting to do this and maybe get a little bit more one-on-one. And she did that and more. I found her class. I had a bunch of questions because I just didn't want to sign up for a class. So what I did was I reached out to her. She gave me a call and answered all of my questions, made me feel very comfortable in taking her class. It was kind of funny because she was getting ready to go out of town and I was like, oh, well, just wait till you get back. And he understood the importance of why I wanted to do it and how important it was for me to go ahead and do it. Because as women, sometimes we will put things off and put them off. And because she gave me that extra boost to just get it done, I signed up immediately. Once I signed up, she sent me step-by-step instructions of what was going to happen next, what I needed to do. And then once I got to the class, it felt a little bit more comfortable because one, I'd already made a connection with her. And then when I got there, I met other women that I made a connection with. So when we went to the gun range to actually do our shooting, it was like I knew somebody. Because we were women, we kind of all bonded as women, which made it so much more effective for me. And every sixth class, I've been able to stay in touch not only with the women from the class, but still getting the one-on-one mentorship from an instructor to do that, to be able to connect with somebody and take a course and still be able to rely on them after the course is over. She takes it so many steps further to make sure that you are comfortable in what you're doing and making sure that you know the laws and what you need to do to go forward. I know that was a little long-winded, but I just wanted to make sure you guys know how she takes those extra steps to make a female like myself feel comfortable holding the gun, using the gun, and knowing all of the laws.
So Daphne, I have a question for you. When Jerah took our class in Dallas with Andy and Blake, we after like every break, every lunch, every evening, our team gets together and we talk about the class and the roster and who's our strongest person, who's our weakest person, and how do we take this strong person and make them better, and how do we bring this weaker person up to this person's standard. And Jerah was always on the top of our list, our strongest instructor candidate. So I think my question is can you describe the type of instruction you got from a personal standpoint, as far as like how did you and Jerah interact in the classroom, on the range, all that stuff. How did she make you a better shooter?
Oh, wow. Okay, let me just start with the range because I was super nervous. I was so nervous. And she was just so hands-on. And, you know, she reassured me, okay, the one thing I don't want you to do is drop the gun. I got that. But it was just like her just being there and her presence explaining to me step by step from picking the gun up off the table to loading the gun to putting it into the chamber. I mean, every little detail. It wasn't that it was done fast. It wasn't done too slow. It was very precise. And then even just from shooting, it was like I was nervous and she could see that I was nervous, but just her voice and her presence and the way that she presented it to me, it made me feel so comfortable that started shooting a couple of times. I forgot that other people were there, and because of what she had told me to do, I hit the target dead on, and you'd thought I won the lottery because I was so excited, and it was because she was just standing there with this calm voice and giving me these step-by-step instructions. Which, you know, I don't think, nothing against you men, but I don't think I would have gotten that one-on-one from a gentleman what I got from her. That was my experience. As far as the classroom, she is very detailed. She makes it, of course, there's a lot of information. It's very important information, but she makes it fun for us. She's going over the information, but it's not boring to us. It's like we want to know more. And I don't think it was just myself, because the other women around me, we were like, this was like the best class I've ever taken, because she made it fun for us. But we still got the information that we needed. Like, I have not stopped talking about this class or her being an instructor since I left the class. And I'm not just saying that because she's here. I mean, you can ask any of my Facebook followers or any of my friends and family. She is A+ in my book.
And we're doing a class for your brother next week, right?
Yes, my brother and my husband next week. And then I actually have another lead for you too. So.
That's awesome. So, Jerah, I have a question for you. Did we do the make me a jelly sandwich in your classroom?
No, we did. Tell me how to open the bag of chips.
That's right, the bag of chips in the bulk carrier group. So
that was like, so when I put my class information packet together, I remembered that, and so I went back and read over it, and I was like, I need to add more detail here, you know, and that, but yes, it wasn't the jelly sandwich. It was the bag of chips. And I remember them saying, okay, well, you just pull it apart, and then you pulled it apart and the chips went everywhere.
Step by step by step by step by step, right? So, Jerah, my question to you is, when you get together with some of your students, or a private class, or a class at, you know, wherever, what do you do to prepare yourself and your co-instructors or RSOs? What do you guys do to prepare to deal with these multiple different types of personalities like Daphne, that is, you know, is apprehensive and afraid to even touch it? And how do you guys prepare for that as instructors?
So with women, it's a little bit different. So what I've done is I have a big class once a month at Rio Mambo in Colleyville. And I have like 25 or 30 women that will show up. And what I do is we don't shoot the same day. Daphne did, and two other women out of the 3,500 people, or the 35 people rather, they shot, but only 3. And the rest of them, I guide them through class time, because if you're comfortable understanding the laws that surround your ability to carry a gun on your person, you're going to be a little more comfortable going to the range. And so when it comes to women, you almost have to do it differently. And then they schedule their range time with me in small groups where I have 2 or 3 people. And it's a little more time consuming for the instructor, but that's okay for me, because I get to have a bond with people, you know, like Daphne and Casey and Michelle, who came to our range time before this class, instead of cattle calling 35 women to come to the range and expecting them to follow your step-by-step instructions and not have an incident. So I'd rather just qualify them in small groups, do the classroom portion in a big group where they have camaraderie and community and they can connect with other like-minded women who support the Second Amendment. And then we do the shooting portion in smaller groups.
That's awesome. That is totally awesome. Andy, I think you have a follow-up question.
Not really a follow-up question, but first of all, Jerah, what the heck is a cattle call? Because we're not from Texas. Secondly,
like herding cattle, herding cats, you know, you take it. I mean, with women, okay. I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. I mean, I know that, you know, I would consider myself an old school feminist, not any of this, you know, new mutated feminism. But I would, you know, and even being a feminist, I can tell you that when it comes to guns and women, the learning curve is bigger, right? And so you, as an instructor of women, it doesn't mean that you just go, well, I don't want to teach women because I think they're harder to teach. It's just that you have to construct the class in a different way where you know that you as the instructor are going to be safe and then your students are going to be safe. And so that was the method that I came up with, the strategy that I came up with for that.
So Jerah, why is the learning curve bigger for women?
Well, typically we're not raised around that. Typically it's not an interest for women. It's becoming more common. So yes, I mean, more women are starting to shoot, but it's just not something that's ingrained in us like it is men. I mean, for hundreds of years, men have been protectors and women have been protected. And now we're kind of getting to this point where, you know, logic is starting to come into play and women are starting to figure out that, hey, I'm not with a man all the time and I need to learn how to deal with my own safety when I don't have a protector with me, you know. And with Daphne, you know, actually I'm in a big moms group. I'm in a Colleyville moms group and I'm in a South Lake moms group and a Fort Worth moms group. And I posted this and I knew that I was going to get backlash. I knew that I was going to get a bunch of haters when I posted something about guns in a moms group. And I was actually genuinely surprised because there was like 2 moms that were hating on me and all the rest of these moms kind of swooped in and they were like, hey, you don't get to tell us that we can't talk about guns in this moms group. I mean, this is a group for all moms with all opinions. And so I was actually, you know, stood up for and got a lot of business out of it. And so when people, you know, when I would share that Facebook event and people would say that they were interested in the class, I would go in and follow up with them individually and say, hey, are you still interested in this class? Do you want to sign up? Can I answer any of your questions? And I probably emailed Daphne like 3 times on Facebook Messenger before she received it. And I stalked her basically and was like, hey, do you want to come to class? I'd really love to have you in my class. And the reason for that is because when I looked at her Facebook page, I could tell that she was a very happy, logical person. And honestly, I feel like this education really needs to be marketed more to the African-American community. And so I really, really wanted her to be a part of this class and I really wanted her to love it so that she would go back to her friends and her family and say, hey, the Second Amendment is for everybody.
Yeah, amen to that. You know, we talk about this on occasion, minorities, women, African-Americans, Mexicans, all those communities, sometimes they feel a little bit intimidated by firearms instruction. So I think it's important that we have good ambassadors like Daphne, that she carries that on to where she pushes more people into learning even just what the Second Amendment's about. I think that's great. My next point is, number 1, I love teaching women over men because we are so stupid and bullheaded. Women are just sponges, you know, and I absolutely love teaching women because they want to learn. They have no bad habits and they're wide open to listen to anything that makes them better. And I think that's great. Before we get into that, Jerah, explain to us what LTC is exactly. What does it require? How many hours? What's the qualification? Just kind of round us about what it's all about before we get into more details.
So the Texas License to Carry course is a 4 to 6 hour course. It's a minimum 4, a maximum of 6. And that includes your range time. And you have to do a 50-round shooting proficiency. You can qualify with a 22 caliber or higher. That's recent. You used to not be able to do that. And then the legislature said, hey, we're kind of knocking out old people here, you know, people with arthritis and stuff that can't really handle anything bigger. And we all know that a 22 isn't the best carry that there is, but it's certainly better than nothing. And so, you know, if grandma wants to, you know, qualify with the 22, I think she should be able to. So It's a 50-round shooting proficiency, 20 rounds at 3 yards, 20 rounds at 7, and 10 rounds at 15 yards. And then there's about 4 hours of class time, 3.5 to 4 hours of class time, where we go over all the Texas laws that surround your ability to carry a firearm. We talk about encounters with law enforcement. We talk about the aftermath. I talk about the aftermath at length. And the reason that I do that is because I want people to understand that the importance of discerning quickly, should I really shoot this person? Is my car stereo worth it? Is my TV worth it? Probably not. Is my kid worth it? Is my wife worth it? Yes. And so discerning that, you know, just because something is justified under the law doesn't mean it's reasonable. And so that's something that I really stress in my class is, you know, do you want to go through the emotional, financial, and criminal and civil liabilities that you're going to have with this? You know, is it worth it to shoot that person, or, you know, should you just let them run off with your purse, you know, or whatever? So that's the class in a nutshell. Used to be a $140 state fee to Texas, and now it's only $40, which is really nice. But in the state of Texas, you don't have to have a license to have a firearm in your home or in your vehicle. This is just to carry on your person.
So my first question is, what's your wife's name? And then my second question, I think Jeremy's probably upset with me right now, but
no, it's just a scratch. I see what you did there, though, because you said, "Is your wife worth it?" And I was like, "Ah, yeah."
I wanted to kick it back over to Daphne and find out, Daphne, what would you?
Hold on, Jed. Can I? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to cut you off because this is something that. Why is there a 6-hour maximum on the class? If you want to teach a 2-day class and somebody wants to take a 2-day license to carry class, why do they put a max time limit on it?
Well, I have no idea, honestly. It used to be, until a few years ago, it was actually a 2-day, 12-hour class. And then they shortened it. And I'm kind of glad they did, because a lot of it was very redundant. I mean, there wasn't a reason for you to have a 2-hour class, or a 2-day class. But I have done weekend like seminars where we'll do like a 3.5 hour intro to handgun class on a Saturday, and then we'll do license to carry on a Sunday. So I mean, the state doesn't tell you that you can't formulate your own, you know, your own customizations to it necessarily. They're just saying that this is the information that you have to cover, and it just says in the DPS paperwork that it's a minimum of 4 hours and a maximum of 6. But I'm pretty sure nothing's going to happen to you if you have an 8-hour class.
Sorry, Jed, back to you. That question is just
more the minimum than the maximum.
Yeah.
Who had the question?
Judson. Judson did. I cut him off. I don't know if you're still muted. There you
go. Daphne, I wanted to ask you if you had somebody that was considering taking Jerah's class, and what would you tell them? What would you wish that you had known before you went into Jerah's class for license to carry? Or I'm sorry, Clearing the Chamber is the company, right? License to carry the class. What would you tell somebody that is considering taking this class that you didn't know that you found out after the fact?
As far as just the class in general, or are you talking about things about the class? I just want to make sure I understand your question.
Just the class in general.
One thing that Jerah is very thorough. So there wasn't really much that I didn't know. I think it was just me just wanting to know the person that I was going to be taking the class from. So as far as taking her class, I think that just the information that she puts out about what the class is offering and all of that is very thorough. So I don't think that there's anything that I would have wanted differently, or that somebody else would even want differently, because as far as the information that's there, everything is there. I think just for me, I wanted to just talk to the person that was doing the class, and that was just my own preference.
Okay, that makes sense.
Daphne, what gun did you use?
I used a 9mm, I believe. Isn't that what I used, Jerah?
So what did you think about it? Was that your first time shooting a handgun? I'm sorry if I missed that earlier.
Yes, in a long time. It's been a while. I have before, but many, many moons ago. So over the last 10, 15 years, yes, it's been a while.
Was there some reluctance to shoot the gun, to pull the trigger the first time when you're out there on the range?
It wasn't that. I'm harder on myself than anybody else can be. So it was once I pulled the trigger the first time, I was fine. It was just, my whole thing was letting her down because she was there to help me. So in my mind, it was like, I have to do this right. But after I got through the first shot, I was fine. And I felt very comfortable. I couldn't actually go back and practice some more. So I think I was pretty comfortable after the first shot.
That's awesome. And I asked that question because I wanted to follow up with Jerah. Jerah, have you found that in the women's only courses, is there a difference in those first few shots? What I found is that, typically somebody's reluctant to pull the trigger. There's some nervousness and anxiety around it, but once they start shooting it, they see that it's not really an issue. Have you found that that's something more prevalent in the female students than it is with your males? And as an instructor, how do you help your students overcome that?
Well, the nervousness is very prevalent with most women that come and take the class. That's why I always try to recommend an intro to handgun class first, because the license to carry class doesn't teach you how to shoot a gun, and you have to effectively communicate that. But I always find that the first shot that they typically take is straight in the bull, because they're not trying to control the gun. They don't know what to expect yet, right? Then after that, they have some low and left shots because there's too much finger on the trigger. They're anticipating the recoil. I typically have to work on a lot of wrist break issues. But once they load that magazine, I usually have them load like 5 rounds at a time. And once they get to about round 15, they're smooth through 50. I mean, they love it and they enjoy it. And that's the thing that's the thing that really just sets off my passion about it, is seeing them get to round 15 and go, I've got this. This is not a problem for me. I can totally do this. And then they're just liberated and emancipated, and they're just a new woman walking out of the range going, I can take care of myself. I need more practice, but I can take care of myself. And I wasted all this time being afraid of this thing, and literally in an hour, I'm a brand new person. It's that's what makes me, that's why I do it for a living.
Yeah, that which kind of circles me back to an earlier point that I wanted to just kind of shout out is Daphne was talking about how you follow up and you mentor your students, and that's something that is fairly uncommon in the concealed carry, the license to carry industry. And that's part of the reason why concealed carry courses, license to carry courses get such a bad rap, because there are so many instructors out there just running a certificate mill. They're going to load 50 people in class. They're going to have 50 people out there on the range because that's the quickest way for them to make a buck. And when we were talking about reviewing a license to carry course or a concealed carry course, one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that we brought an instructor on that had the integrity, that really cared about their students, and it showed. So that's huge props to you, because it's not difficult to pencil whip that certificate and forget about that student until they want to give you some more money. So hearing Daphne talk about the follow-up and the mentorship is awesome. Daphne, if we could get you to talk to us a little bit about the classroom instruction, and maybe Daphne and Jerry, you can kind of tag team this question together. But in the 4 to 6 hour classroom portion, what are you guys talking about? Jerry, you said it's not an intro to handgun course, so there isn't much on how to use a handgun. So what are those 4 to 6 hours comprised of?
So we talk about there's laws that Texas has, how you can defend yourself, how you can defend a third party's property, your property. And we, of course, talk about what's, justified versus what's reasonable. We talk about, of course, disqualifying factors, and how you can get your license suspended or revoked. We go over that in pretty good detail. We talk about what the law says about drinking and carrying a firearm. We talk about that at length. And then we talk about civil liabilities, criminal liabilities. We hit on situational awareness a lot, because if we were all just a little more situationally aware, we'd avoid 90% of the situations of duress we'd probably face in our life. And then we talk about what the legal system looks like after you have an incident with your firearm, like what you can expect, how to deal with, the 911 call, how to deal with the police, how to utilize your attorney in the best way possible. And then, when are you going to get your guns back? When are you going to get your license back? Like, all the steps that you can do that's right. And one of the reasons why I follow up with my students is, I do care. I really care. But I also have a degree of liability in this. And if I'm not teaching them, if I'm not following up with them and making sure that they're practicing and that they're taking the training, not only for their body, but for their mind, to be able to quickly assess out of rationality instead of fear, whether or not I should shoot this person, then I don't really feel like I'm doing my job. And when I took this course, the DPS kept telling me, and I posted about this today on Facebook, the DPS kept telling me, nobody makes a living teaching license to carry. Like, this is supplemental income. And I think if people are looking at it only as supplemental income, they're not going to care about it. And I said, hold my range bag and watch this, because I'm going to make this my living.
Yeah.
And I think that when it's your living and you have that degree of liability, and then you have, and you structure a class where you get to bond with your students and you get to just create a network, especially a network of women shooters, you just want to do it right.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So Daphne, Jerah mentioned situational awareness here in the beginning, that you guys talked about it at length. Explain to us what your situational awareness was before you took this course and what it looks like now. And you're muted, Daphne.
Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello,
Okay,
guys.
sorry, my computer was a little. Can you repeat that question again, please?
Sure. So Jerah talked about teaching you situational awareness, being aware of your surroundings, Sorry about that. Tell us the difference between, before you took this class, what situational awareness meant to you compared to what it looks like now.
Well, I think I kind of always had a little bit of that. My husband used to work for the sheriff's department when we lived back in East Texas. And there was some of the things that she would say in the class that was like, okay, that's why he did those things. Like, for instance, when we go to a restaurant, he would never want to sit with his back to the door or something. To me at that time, I would think, this is so silly. Why can't you sit on the other side? But it was him always wanting to know his surroundings, knowing all the exits and things like that. And before, I thought I kind of like picked up on that because my husband did it. But now that I've taken her class, she's kind of opened my eyes to some different things. And, I'm now looking at my surroundings differently than I did before. Considering, I'm a female, and like I said, especially this time of the year, I work very late hours and I'm by myself. So having those surroundings and knowing what's around me and how to protect myself, by taking this class, I feel so much more safe going forward than I did before.
Yeah, that's good. Do you guys fight yet for that seat now when you go to the restaurants?
We do, which is so funny. She was saying that was something that her and her better half does. And I thought, gosh, I never even thought about it before. And it would drive me crazy that he wanted to do that. But now, taking this class and then thinking, well, why wasn't I thinking? And he told me that, but it's so silly. Why do you care about what everybody else is doing? But, she really opened our eyes to some major things. And, I'm very thankful and grateful. And again, I've been telling everybody to take her class, male or female, because again, it's our Second Amendment right, as well as if you are going to carry a firearm, at least know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Totally agree with that.
I agree.
I also agree. What was your biggest takeaway from this class, from the license to carry course?
Oh, wow. My biggest takeaway. I have a couple, actually. One is feeling more comfortable with the firearm. I felt comfortable before, but it wasn't like I was carrying it. It was like, you know, just going out and there's nobody around, but feeling more comfortable. And then I learned so many things about the laws and, you know, even after getting my license, things that I should be aware of just as a person that you didn't think that maybe that might affect you. Like, you know, just simple things like acting like a crazy person in public. You know, I could lose my license. Yeah. I mean, we know it's bad, but now it carries a bigger weight if you have your license. So, you know, I could be here all night long if I told you all the takeaways, but one thing that I will tell you as a female, learning from a female, knowing the ins and outs, and her taking the time to go in depth on, I mean, just, I'll give you one more example. The, what is it called? And correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the 3007 and the 3006. Is that correct?
Yeah, OT 6 and the OT 7.
And then knowing that, I guess the signs that had the actual picture of the handgun with the line through it, just knowing the difference of those things really opened my eyes. I was like, wow, that you would think that if it has a gun with a line through it, you can't take a gun in there. But if it doesn't have these things posted, the 3006 or the 3007, and then also knowing what those mean, because they do mean different things. So, I mean, I would recommend anybody take this class or some class to learn the laws and learn how to carry a firearm.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because in New Mexico, we have kind of the same thing, right? We have a generic no gun sign that that applies to us, and then we have the 30-7. So it might be a little bit different. And then we have the 30-7-3, which is our prohibited or licensed liquor establishment, where that sign doesn't apply to us because we're an exception to that. So can you guys talk to us a little bit about the concealed carry or the license to carry, the minutia there?
So what Daphne was saying is, so in Texas, we have a 3006 sign that has specifically legal verbiage, and it has to be posted at all the entrances. And it's actually a defense to prosecution if it isn't posted at all entrances, because if you came in the back, you weren't given effective notice. And the 3006 is no concealed firearms. And then 3007 is no open firearms. So in 2016, Texas was deemed an open carry state. So they added the extra signage. So a lot of gun-friendly establishments will actually only post a 3007 because they are welcoming your concealed guns, but they don't want a bunch of open guns running around. But it is only those two signs that can keep you from carrying your gun in an establishment. You can't just put a sticker on your window with a gun with a slash through it. That's not legally binding to the license holder. The license will trump that. So we can still go in there with our concealed license. Now, if somebody, you know, that owned the property, you know, didn't want us in there with our guns, and they knew for a fact that we had one because we bent over and they could see it through our shirt, and they asked us to leave, we would have to abide by that. And then as far as alcohol is concerned, we have what's called a 51%. So we can carry in places that derive less than 51% of their revenue from the sale of on-premise consumption alcohol. But if it's like a restaurant bar where they sell more food than booze, we can carry in there in Texas.
Awesome. So, Jerah, I have two questions for you. The first question is, what's your dog's name?
Lambo.
Lambo, as in the Lamborghini?
As in Lambeau Field, fool. You know I'm a Packers
fan. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, my second question is more realistic. If you had something that you wanted to tell a potential student, what can they expect when they show up? Like 8 a.m. Saturday morning. Hey, Lambo, 8 a.m. Saturday morning. When they walk into your classroom, what expectation should they have? What should they bring? What should they, be thinking about? That kind of thing.
The beautiful thing about my class is we don't do 8 a.m. on Saturday morning classes. That's the whole reason why I think my business is successful. And if somebody requested it, right? But I think that when what I do in my emails, my correspondence prior to class is I say everything in very layman terms, because I want them to know that they're dealing with somebody who, I'm a subject matter expert in my field, but I'm not going to present it to you that way. I'm just an ordinary person. And so I want them to come with a mindset that we're going to have fun doing this, as much fun as you can possibly have in a class where you talk about potentially killing people. Okay. And there's going to be some heavy things that we're going to talk about. And we're going to get through that stuff, but we've got to talk about it. And one of the things, I'll tell you one example, especially in all women's classes, most of those women are moms, and you have to address the talking to your children about guns situation. And that is probably the hardest part of the class, because moms don't want to hear that. Gotcha. They don't want any guns around their kids. Okay. And then dads are all like, we got 19,000 guns in the house. We should probably talk to our kids about the guns. And so it's almost the one time in every marriage where the man just makes sense and the woman makes none sense. Okay. And so, that's one of the things that I'll see moms' faces in my class, and I'll be like, hey, it's time to start teaching your kids about guns. And the moms are like, oh, because it's so nerve-wracking. It just makes your butthole crunch up when you start thinking about having to talk to your kids about guns. But when I show them the social studies that are out there and how impactful the NRA Eddie Eagle program has been in that endeavor, in taking the curiosity out of it so that that your kids don't go looking for your guns, it starts to make sense to them when you start saying, hey, well, when you tell your kid don't touch the stove and they do it anyway, that's exactly what they're going to do with your gun. You got to tell them why. You got to explain it to them. So, that's the hardest part of the class that I have to teach, I think.
What's aside from the gratification that your students have and the walking away empowered and having your hand in that, what's the greatest part about teaching others how to defend themselves?
Spreading the message so that these punk asses in our government don't take our guns away.
I love it.
I mean, it doesn't get more gratifying than that. And what I'm doing and what my mission is, and what the mission of all these other female instructors, especially in the DFW area that I've connected with, our mission is to create a militia of women who know what the hell they're doing. Okay. Who don't have to be afraid, who can go and speak to our regulating entities and the people that run this country and say, hey, 2A rights are women's rights. And that's just the deal. Okay. So you're going to have to just take this gun control mess somewhere else, because we're moms who care about being able to protect our kids and be able to protect our families and protect ourselves. So you're going to have to take that nonsense somewhere else.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, Annie and I were just talking to some other folks here locally, and how about how the 2A community, by and large, we're missing the important conversations with folks that don't have their minds made up on the Second Amendment, right? They're not out there demonstrating to take guns away, but they're not out there fighting for the rights. So there's a lot of people
or attacking them for their story because they identify as a Democrat, right? So this whole cloud that sits over the Second Amendment, where if you're a gun person, you're automatically a Republican, is horseshit. It's awful. Okay. And we can't do that. We have to take people's stories and we have to say, okay, well, we may disagree on a political platform over here regarding these issues, but your right to be alive it's just there for you. Okay. And you have to, and I'm actually giving a sermon at a Christian women's luncheon at the end of the month about what God says about our ability to defend ourselves. And our ability to defend ourselves is a natural right that God gave us, but we have to do it with wisdom and tact. Okay. And it has to be a last resort, and we have to start trying to reach people by being kind to them and loving them first. And if that doesn't work and they're still batshit crazy, then we got to smoke them. Okay. But we got to do the other thing first.
Yeah. I like that. Smoke them.
Daphne, what do you think? Why aren't more women seeking out from your perspective, why aren't more women seeking out the firearms training? And I know a lot of in the gun industry, we talk about women firearms owners, new women firearms owners. That's the greatest or the fastest growing segment of the gun owning population. But I still don't think it's real necessarily on pace with what it could be or it should be. So what are your thoughts on some reluctance that women have for getting into that realm, that area?
Well, I don't think it's something that would be considered the norm. Like we spoke about earlier, it's not something that women were normally doing. It was like the man was the protector. And so I think now with the way things are shifting, I think opening up and then having more women instructors, which will give them a different type of platform to relate to someone. There's some women that possibly wouldn't feel comfortable going to a class that was taught by a man. And I know that kind of sounds a little chauvinistic. I don't mean it that way, but just speaking from not me personally, but there are some women that feel more comfortable speaking to another female. But then there are some others that could go to any class. I think that going forward, this is going to change with, of course, Jonna, she's putting it out there and giving us a platform to go and seek this, the instructing and the ability to be able to bear firearms.
That's awesome. Yeah, we women's only courses are, I feel like they're more of a marketing thing than they are a care about your student thing, which is why we haven't done them, because so in New Mexico we have a 2-day class. It's 15 hours. It's the minimum we have to teach, and they give us a bunch of stuff. It is like an intro to handgun course and a concealed carry course, and we get requests for a women's only course, and I say, yeah, we're going to do that, but I need to find some female instructors, because it's a women's only course and it's Andy and I up there. We're not going to have the same perspective.
I'll come do it. I mean, you guys are the certified instructors. If they just want, if you just need a vagina there, I'll come.
Well, the other part of it is, the other part of that though is it's since it is different, right? And we took a William April seminar last weekend. He asked the guys in class, raise your hand if you thought about being sexually assaulted today, right? Or if you make decisions based around that. So the risks that we face are different. So if we did a women's only course, and the reason we haven't done is because I feel if it's not what you're doing or something like what you're doing, Jerah, where it's women's only and it's going to be a course directed for women, right? Then I think you're scamming your students, honestly. So it's I can't say enough about as a firearms instructor, we need to make sure that we're not letting that, well, how do I get a few extra dollars in my bank account, become priority over let's take care of our students and making sure we're really giving them what they need. Yeah,
the one thing I do tell in my classes is, I tell women all the time, 2 things. I want to teach so many women how to shoot that it's not even impressive anymore to anybody. It's just another thing, right? And the second thing is I tell people, look, if you're dipping your toe into the 2A waters and you feel like you're going to feel better getting your introductory, because that's my passion, is introductory classes. I don't teach advanced pistol 1. I don't teach advanced pistol 2. I barely teach force on force, and only when I have to. I'd rather take force on force classes. But I get them ready. I get them hungry for it, and then I turn them over to people like you. And the reason that I do that is because I tell them in my classes, if you want to take your intro to handgun or your license to carry class from me, that's fine. But if you don't at some point start training with men, it's never going to work for you, because I'm not probably ever going to be your aggressor. And if you're not training with the likeness and I don't mean this rudely or inappropriately, but if you're not going to train with the likeness of your potential aggressor, how are you ever going to know what to do? How are you ever going to truly know what to do? So that's what we need to, if we're going to do women's only classes, we need to take the responsibility to relay that message and say, look, You can have a women's only class to this level of your pathway. And then you need to start mixing it in. You need to start mixing some dudes in there so that you truly understand and you truly get that real world training. Otherwise, it's not going to benefit you at all.
That's perfect.
And
Yeah,
I think that once you take that first class and it opens your eyes to what the class consists of with a female, then it will help them be able to go to that next level that you're talking about.
I mean, I've been training with guys for 7 years. I've got my ass kicked a lot, and I promise you, you don't want these hands.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't want any hands. I don't have time for that. I have a wife and three kids. I have a my youngest is 4 months old. I gotta make it home. Then I can't spend a night in jail. I'm not mentally tough enough to do that. I can deal with some other stuff.
I have a question for you. What do you do for a living? You said you were in the tax field.
Correct. I own a tax business, so I do taxes and bookkeeping.
So will you do Andy's taxes next year so he doesn't keep asking me questions?
Of course, absolutely.
Hey, Jerah, how's everything gone for you the last couple of years? I mean, you took your instructor course from me a year and a half ago or so. I mean, how have you been for the last year? I mean, we've been talking on the phone and hanging out, but how's everything going? How's Lambo doing? How's the boyfriend doing? All that good stuff.
Man, Lambo's great. Brian, my better half, just bought a hunting property in Colorado. I was telling Andy about it the other day. So we're gonna go kill some elk this season, get some mule deer. We rode down the mountain. Our house is on top of this mountain, so we snowmobiled down the mountain. God, you should have seen him trying to figure out how to run that snowplow. It might have been the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. And then I started this business, so I've been really busy with this business and making sure that I can fit everybody in and still kind of have a life balance. But this is really, I mean, this is my business and more importantly, my mission. So I've been super busy with that. And then I'm helping the Stanier brothers build a new range over in Grapevine, right off Main Street. And so we should be open by Labor Day. Yeah,
we talked about that on the phone a couple of months ago. So one last thing, and I'll turn it back over to Jeremy, who is our grand poobah. We're doing a medical force on force class in Shreveport, April 6th and 7th, which is only 3-ish hours away from you guys. So if that's something you guys are interested in, we'd love to have you. I can send you some details.
Yeah, please do.
It's a 2-day course, April 6th and 7th, and a lot of the Texas guys are going to be there. Matt Walker, I think Jared Noble, and maybe one other guy might drive over from Fort Worth.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something that I love that you push for is if you're going to learn how to shoot a gun, and this is really good advice, Daphne, if you're going to learn how to shoot a gun, you better learn how to clean up the mess too. So taking that medical is really good.
Absolutely. So Jerah, I'll email you that information. You can populate it out into your world.
I will.
So I think Jeremy.
Yeah, we have a listener question. Steven wants to know, and it kind of spun another question, but does Jerah have a recommendation for shooting gloves? Does she recommend using gloves for women learning how to shoot?
No, I don't even bring in a 22 for my intro class unless I have an arthritic student. I don't feel like shooting gloves are necessary. I've never worn them. The best I'll do is, throw a Hogue grip over some stippling as long as it doesn't have a grip safety. And I do recommend the Hogue grips. I love the grips that make the gun a little more comfortable on your hands. But I'm not bashing anybody that uses shooting gloves. It's just not ever an accessory that I've ever cared for.
So I will follow up that or segue off of that with a comment and then turn it back over to Jeremy because I'm sure he has something else to say. But I'm not a fan of shooting gloves unless I am bird hunting. And in that case, when you're constantly loading shells into a shotgun, I mean, your thumbs can get really jacked up really quick. So when I'm either upland hunting or we did a hunt down in Cordova, Argentina about a year ago, and I use the Sitka shooting gloves is what they're called. They're really durable and they're not terribly expensive. I think they're like $50 a pair. But that's what I have in my range bag for shooting gloves, but I only use them when I'm shotgunning.
You know what you could do instead of shooting gloves? Just miss less. You don't have to load fewer shells. So kind of in that same vein, is there an accessory or an item that you would recommend for new shooters in general?
Women typically want the speed loaders. And I don't allow them to use a speed loader in class, but they can get one later. And I'll show them how to use it, but they need to learn how to do it, how to load a magazine manually, because honest to God, in a situation of duress, you're not going to be able to go get your speed loader. Okay, it's just the deal. And I talk about carrying extra mags and stuff like that. You know, Alexo Athletica has the great, concealed carry activewear pants that has the extra mag pocket in it. So that tends to be a popular accessory with women. But as far as gun accessories go, I mean, I'm introducing them to the bare bones. So if they're wanting to talk accessories, the things that I talk about are grips and night sights, so that they can see the gun on their bedside table. And then if they want to learn about other ways to jazz up their firearm, they can talk to one of you guys about it, because that's not really something that is in my wheelhouse. I don't go trick out my guns and stuff. I just pick them up and shoot them.
Punisher skulls and Molon Labe engraving on everything, right? That's
yeah.
Andy, I think you had a couple wrap up questions for our guests.
Yeah, we always like to ask useless information stuff, but I think this one's a good one.
We lost you a couple times there.
Oh, okay. Am I here?
Yeah.
You're here.
All right, let's start this all over again. Jerah, start with you. You recommend, and then Daphne, do you have one as well? It could be anything.
What was the question?
What book do you recommend?
What
shooting
book?
related, or it doesn't have to be shooting related. What book should I read?
I just finished The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. I think it's Timothy Ferriss. It will change your life on running your own business, time management, how to delegate stuff, and how to actually have a life and own and run a business. So I cannot recommend that book enough.
I like it.
Put it on my Audible list right now. I have the hard copy, but in the pre-show we talked about not being able to read or pronounce stippling. So
yeah, I listened to it on Audible actually on the way to and back from Colorado.
Nice. What about you, Daphne? Is there a book that you recommend?
There's a book that one of my mentors wrote. It's called From the Hood to Doing Good. He talks about how he started here and how he's here and how he got there. It's a really, really great read. He's a local mentor from Fort Worth, Texas. So that would be a book that I would recommend for someone.
From the Hood to Doing Good?
Yes.
I like that.
I almost would have named that From the Hood to the Wood. The whole hunting thing.
There you go.
Yeah. Do you hunt though?
I do.
He dismisses a lot.
Yeah.
I do.
I can't say anything. For the last 3 years, I've been going hunting. I was going to go hunting this year for the last 3 years. But this year I'm going to get into competitive shooting. Daphne, Jerah, do you have any last minute parting advice for our listeners before we jump off of here?
Make time to train. It doesn't take that long. Minimum 2 hours a month. You need to be at the range every other week at minimum to keep your skills sharp. You can do it. If you want to have a gun, you need to train.
Agreed.
I agree. I would say if you're somebody like myself that have been putting off either learning how to shoot or even getting your license or both, I would say just take that leap of faith and find an instructor if you're not in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and can go to a class. The same class that I went to, I would say find a class that suits you, that you're comfortable in, and just take that leap of faith and get it done. Because I did, and I'm excited that I did. So
Awesome. I love it. Well, we appreciate everybody jumping on and hanging out with us tonight. We'll be back next Monday. I was going to say next Tuesday. We'll be back next Monday, possibly a half an hour later. But until then, stay safe. Remember, it's your life. It's your safety and protection. It's your responsibility.
Boy, I have something to add.